Fear is one of the oldest tools ever used to control human beings. It can silence reason, override empathy, and turn imagination into a weapon pointed at ourselves. And few ideas have exploited fear as effectively as the concept of hell, a place of eternal punishment, where pain never ends, where mercy is forgotten, and where thought itself becomes torture. But the real question is, why fear hell at all? The idea of hell didn't appear out of nowhere. It was built, brick by human hands, shaped by cultures, translated through languages, and reinforced by power. Early religions borrowed fragments of older myths about the afterlife, blending them into moral systems that promised reward or punishment after death. But the version most people know today, the lake of fire, the screams, the endless torment, didn't come from divine revelation. It came from interpretation, imagination, and often intimidation. The ancient Hebrew texts barely mentioned such a place. Sheol was simply the grave, a shadowy underworld where everyone went, good or bad. The Greek Hades wasn't a torture chamber either. It was more like a dim echo of life. The Inferno, as we picture it today, only really took shape centuries later, sculpted by theologians, poets, and artists. Dante's Inferno probably did more to define hell in the public imagination than any holy book ever did. What's fascinating is that hell evolved not as a moral necessity, but as a psychological weapon. Fear binds people faster than love, because love invites thought, but fear demands obedience. A person who's terrified of eternal punishment doesn't ask questions. They confess, comply, and conform. Entire empires found this useful. The promise of paradise and the threat of hell worked like social glue. Keep the population in line, discourage rebellion, and make guilt a permanent feature of human life. It's control dressed as salvation. And yet, when you think about it, the logic of eternal punishment collapses under its own weight. What kind of mind, infinitely wise and good, creates beings capable of doubt, places them in a confusing world full of conflicting beliefs, then condemns them to endless agony for choosing wrong? That isn't justice. It's sadism disguised as morality. If a parent burned their child for disobedience, we'd call it abuse. But when a deity is said to do the same for eternity, it's called divine justice. The moral contradiction is impossible to ignore. Some argue that hell exists to ensure moral order, that without the threat of punishment, people would run wild. But that's a grim view of humanity. If the only thing keeping someone decent is fear of torture, are they really moral or just scared? Genuine morality doesn't come from terror. It comes from empathy, from understanding that others can suffer as we do. It's built on reason and compassion, not threats. The idea that people need the fear of hell to be good is an insult to the human spirit. And what exactly does eternal punishment even mean? Eternity isn't just a long time. It's the total absence of time. The mind can't even process that. 1 trillion years would be just the first heartbeat of infinity. For a finite mistake, for a brief human life filled with uncertainty and imperfection, the sentence of infinite torment is not just cruel, it's mathematically absurd. A punishment that never ends can't serve justice. It only serves terror. It's worth asking, why do so many people still cling to this fear, even when they no longer believe the literal fire? The answer lies deeper than doctrine. It's emotional conditioning. From childhood, many are told not only that hell exists, but that doubting it is itself dangerous. The threat isn't just external, it becomes internal. The mind learns to punish itself, replaying images of suffering, whispering, "What if?" in the quiet moments. Even when logic dismantles belief, the fear remains like a scar. That's how powerful early indoctrination can be. It wires anxiety into conscience. Religious authorities often claim hell proves divine love, that warning people about it is an act of mercy. But love that threatens is not love. A parent who says, "I love you, but if you disobey me, I'll hurt you forever," isn't loving. They're manipulating. The same logic, when applied to a deity, doesn't become holy just because it's cosmic. It's still coercion, still emotional blackmail, just scaled up to infinity. Even more telling is how the concept of hell changes with time and culture. Some denominations quietly downplay it, embarrassed by its barbaric tone. Others reinterpret it metaphorically, as separation from the divine, or as a self-created state of despair. But these reinterpretations reveal something crucial. Even believers sense that eternal torture doesn't fit with moral progress. It feels out of place in a world where justice is evolving beyond vengeance. When compassion deepens, the old threats lose their grip. Think about how differently we'd view morality if the idea of hell had never existed. People might act kindly not out of fear but out of understanding. Instead of teaching children to be good because they might burn forever, we could teach them to be good because suffering hurts, because empathy matters, because life itself is precious and fragile. Fear is a crude teacher. Wisdom is a better one. Some might say, but what if hell is real? Isn't it safer to believe just in case? That argument, sometimes called Pascal's wager, sounds practical until you apply it consistently. What if you picked the wrong religion? There are thousands of versions of eternal punishment. Believing in one automatically means rejecting the others. So by that logic, you're risking damnation in every other possible afterlife. Fear doesn't protect you. It only traps you in an endless guessing game. If there's one thing history shows, it's that the idea of hell has always served those in power more than those in need. It frightens the poor into submission, consoles the powerful with the illusion that their enemies will suffer later, and convinces the suffering that their pain might be meaningful. It turns moral complexity into a binary of saved or damned, faithful or lost. But the world isn't that simple, and neither are we. When you strip away the threats, what's left is the quiet truth that goodness doesn't need an afterlife to matter. Love doesn't require eternity to be real. Compassion doesn't come from fear. It comes from understanding. And if any divine being existed worthy of reverence, it would not demand terror as tribute. It would not build a furnace for its own children. So, why fear hell? Because we were taught to. Because fear is contagious and tradition is stubborn. But fear loses its power the moment we question its source. When you realize that no one truly knows what happens after death, the only honest thing left to do is live fully, love deeply, and think clearly while you're here. If there is any judgment worth fearing, it's not from some unseen realm. It's from the part of ourselves that knows when we've lived in fear instead of truth. The real hell isn't beneath us, it's inside us when we surrender reason to terror. And the only way out isn't prayer, it's freedom.